welcome to another episode of Buckeye Football Weekly here on Buckeye TV. I am your host, Brad Comer, and we have a lot to talk about this week. Wisconsin loses to Ohio State in the Horseshoe, and the Buckeyes take on 16th ranked Northwestern this week in Evanston. This week I am alongside Mark Finch and Brandon Beam, both of Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio. Mark, you join us again for another week. Brandon, you haven't been on the show in a while.
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks.
But anyways, thanks for joining us, and we have a lot to talk about, like I said, in this big show. Well, the non-conference schedule is finally over, and the Buckeyes officially moved on to Big Ten play under the lights versus the Badgers. And Ohio State's 31-24 win over Wisconsin. Braxton Miller proved to the nation that he didn't miss a beat, throwing for 198 yards with 4 touchdowns. Not to mention, he also rushed for 83. Those efforts by Miller earned the junior quarterback as the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. The Buckeye win puts them at 5-0, but also OSU earned a loss. Senior defensive back and captain Christian Bryant will miss the remainder of the season with a broken ankle.
That darn kid has done so much for our program. He's come so far, incredible leadership skills, and he's going to be even more valuable outside of football. And I love that guy. Doggone it. It's a hard part of the game, boy.
Guys, really probably the heart and soul of who we are. And we say that sometimes about a bunch of different guys, but he's a guy that's come a long way for us. And I don't mean that on the field, but I mean just in his leadership abilities and different things like that. But
that's a huge loss because he's like the leader. He's one of the leaders of our defense, and but we just gonna have to keep going and just keep playing the rest of this season for him.
It's probably one of the worst things that can happen right now. I mean, because he's like a big brother to everybody on the defense and the team. He just bring that leadership role that he kind of just calm everybody down when things going bad.
We're not worried about the plan. We're worried about the leadership aspect. It's going to take all the leaders to do more. Myself to do more, and because we got to replace his leadership.
That's concern number one. Concern number probably 1, 2, and 3 is who's going to fill his spot, who's going to assume the leadership obligation and responsibility that he has shown. Incredible young man.
All right, so guys, we knew during the preseason that there wasn't much experience in this secondary, and now with Christian Bryant breaking his ankle and out for the year, a lot of people are saying that this is a big loss for the Buckeyes and the Silver Bullets. Brandon, I'll start with you. How big of a loss is this for the defense and most of all the secondary?
Oh, I think it's a huge loss for the secondary. You lead senior Christian Bryant, who's one of your leaders alongside C.J. Barnett. So then you can look to sophomores or freshmen to step into that role. There's really no proven junior on that side either. So you're going to have to go with either Tyvis Powell or Von Bell at that spot. So, both really unproven. We know Tyvis Powell has played some, but not as much as Bryant has.
Yeah, I agree that the loss of Bryant is going to be a big deal for the secondary that allowed a lot of yards for a really not a very good quarterback in Stave for Wisconsin. And like he said, there's just not really a great guy to step in for Bryant, a lot of young guys, and that was probably the problem with the defense already this year is a lot of people were complaining about the youth. So big loss and a little bit concerning with the pass defense.
Let's stick on that topic, people who could step in and fill in that role at free safety for Christian Bryant. I've been hearing a lot of Corey Pitt-Brown. He's been playing the nickel at the moment, but he could switch over and play that free safety position. Tyvis Powell and obviously Von Bell have been mentioned as well, but Pitt-Brown has that leadership. He has the experience. He's a fifth-year senior. Mark, do you like Pitt-Brown if he moves over to free safety?
I think Pitt-Brown might be a good fit because you're losing not only with Christian Bryant the player, but you're losing the leadership. And to put in a freshman in that role, and he's standing back there alone at safety. He's not playing in like the defensive line or anything like that. So I think it's important that there is still some leadership taken care of. So Brown might be a better choice for the safety.
I would agree to that at some point because you need leadership on your defense, and that's what Pitt-Brown brings to you. He gives you the leadership. But as talent-wise goes, that's why he wasn't starting in the beginning. Tyvis Powell and Von Bell are absolutely freaks when it comes to athletic ability. So, taking nothing away from Corey Brown at all. But, Von Bell, who comes in as a highly touted freshman, maybe give him a shot, see how he does. Kind of the sink or swim mentality, because you know what Corey Brown is going to do. But if Von Bell plays up to his potential, maybe you create a superstar early on.
Yeah, both Urban Meyer and Kerry Combs said on Monday, all three of them would be in the running. So I think we're going to see all three of them playing in the game, whether it's at free safety, whether it's at the nickel position. Let's still focus on the secondary. Brandon, I want to ask you this question. Bradley Roby didn't have the best game Saturday night versus Wisconsin. I think the guy we can bring up that really affected this game was Jared Aberderis. There were a lot of NFL scouts at that game. I believe there was 11 that I heard with one of the guys I sit next to you in the press box. How big of a concern was Roby's performance, and did his draft stock fall after that performance against Wisconsin? Because Aberderis had about 217 yards receiving. It's something like that. It was definitely over 200.
Well, you can give him the benefit of the doubt and say that Wisconsin is a running team, and he was looking in the backfield the whole night. But is it a concern? Absolutely. I mean, he got beat by California's wide receivers pretty much all day long. Aberderis comes in and receives for over 150 yards in the first half. And then you're wondering, a guy who was supposed to be a top 10 pick in the league this year is all of a sudden getting, picked on. It's not like they're just throwing it to him and they're making wonderful catches. I mean, he's wide open, and Aberderis made huge plays time after time. So I think it's a concern, and I think his draft stock is dropping.
We mentioned earlier Braxton Miller. He's player of the week on offense. And punter Cameron Johnston, he was also named player of the week at special teams. So starting with Miller, did he look 100% on Saturday?
I think he did. I think Braxton looked pretty phenomenal in the first half. I mean, his running ability, he looked a little slower than he usually does. But other than that, I mean, his passing was just unbelievable. He was throwing cannons out of the pocket, and everything was right on a dime. I mean, I don't think he missed a receiver, and he was throwing passes into Hireman into tight situations with Chris Borland running all around him. So I think I think Braxton went 100%, and he just looked really, really well.
Yeah, I think Braxton is 100%. I was really surprised with all the rushes he had that he popped right back up after every single one. No lingering pain really appeared in the knee at any point in the game, so I was really impressed. 198 yards and 4 touchdowns for Miller. I mean, what's there to complain about, really? I mean, he was playing just as well, and, there were still maybe some calls for Kenny Guyton, but I still think Braxton Miller was 100%. I think he's the quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, and I just want to mention the 4 touchdowns he tossed was a career high. He tied a career high. So it looks like Braxton Miller probably the best choice at quarterback over Kenny Guyton. And like we said, play the best man at the position. I think Braxton Miller definitely the man for that. On to Cameron Johnson. All 6 of his punts inside the 20. That man from down under has, in my opinion, has been worth the pickup for Ohio State. I just want to talk about that. The guy is just a freshman. Ohio State could have went after anyone in this state or in the country for a punter, but going all the way to Australia to find a guy, now he's your Big Ten special teams player of the week as a freshman. Is he probably their best pickup that they've had this year? I mean, not their best pickup, but probably a top 5 for a punter.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's been a very impressive punter. I mean, putting 6 punts inside the 20, I think 4 of them or something were inside the 10.
Yes,
even.
yeah, 4 of them were inside the 10. That's right.
I mean, that's impressive, and I mean that's an important thing is winning field position. And Ohio State had field position all night long, mostly because of him. I mean, the offense was getting down the field at least a little bit to set him up for this, but he wasn't getting that many touchbacks or anything like that. He was coffin corner punting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Ohio State punting from their own 40-yard line, and he would pooch them in there right inside the 20, down to the 10. And then even when Ohio State was back at their own, 20-yard line, I mean, he booted like a 74-yard punt or something like that to get him down inside the 20 again. So you thought, all right, you can do the rugby-style punt, and it's going to pop up in the air and drop a little bit. But then, I mean, when he swung his leg back and booted it for a 70-yard punt. So absolutely, he's been a great pickup for the Buckeyes.
Have you ever seen his videos on YouTube?
I've not.
The one he's a YouTube sensation. He went viral before he ever thought about coming here to play American football at Ohio State. But we'll go ahead and move on. We'll talk about Northwestern next. Up next, Ohio State travels to play a tough Northwestern squad, but are they on upset alert? We'll talk about that after this quick timeout. For the second straight week, Ohio State will play another top 25 opponent in Northwestern at Evanston. The 16th ranked Wildcats, coming off a bye, are 4-0 in the season with wins against Western Michigan, Cal, Syracuse, and Maine. Two top 25 opponents benefit in the Bucks and the polls, but that hasn't stopped analysts criticizing OSU's weak schedule.
things. They say we got a weak schedule or whatever, so they say that we're not ready for the big game or whatever. But, I mean, we're just going to keep doing the same thing that we've been doing, and we're going to keep winning. So, I mean, they only can hold us down for so long.
Another night game, game day I hear is going to be there, and it'll be a heck of an atmosphere. So we look forward to this challenge.
All right, so fellas, interesting comments by Philly Brown. Also expressed those opinions over his Twitter account, and he didn't back down from it at all. Usually when an OSU player puts out a tweet like that, it's taken down within 2 minutes. But Philly Brown not backing down at all. He believes Ohio State can compete with anyone, and even the SEC. Did he make a valid point that Ohio State really gets a lot of backlash? I know if you're an Ohio State fan or you're not an Ohio State fan, it's either you are or you're not. Like,
right.
You either love him or you hate him. Like, do you agree with what he had to say, just to an extent?
I do, because if you look at it, Ohio State kind of gets the butt end of some deals looking at it, because the Big Ten has been in somewhat of a downfall these past couple of years, but the AP and ESPN and everybody is loving Clemson right now. And if you look at the ACC in the past years, I mean, they haven't been anything special. So, everybody loving Clemson right now, and even Oregon, I mean, with the Pac-12 and everything. The SEC is a different story. I think the Buckeyes can compete with them. But, I mean, judging Ohio State just based on the conference which they play, I think is unfair.
Yeah, and I don't think it's fair to, really compare them with anybody. I mean, Oregon, if you're going to actually compare, Oregon's toughest opponent has been probably Cal, a team that Ohio State also beat. So, really, where's the comparison? I think it's just a stigma that people have around Ohio State because Ohio State has always been so good and they're always there that, maybe they're not as good right now just because of their conference. They're still in the national spotlight. But I think Ohio State and I think the Big Ten as a whole, I think the Big Ten is better than the Pac-12 as a whole.
Go ahead and actually start scouting the Wildcats. Northwestern 16th in the AP, 15th in the coaches. Cats have a two-headed monster at quarterback right now in King Coulter and Trevor's help me with this pronunciation. Simeon. Okay, I want to say Simon, so I apologize to any Northwestern fans out there watching this. How tough will it be for the Buckeyes to prepare for this two-quarterback system? This is something they haven't seen all season. They probably won't see for the rest of the year.
The two-quarterback system is going to be something that Ohio State hasn't seen, but I think they'll do all right. It's not going to be a pass-happy two-quarterback system. They're both good runners, and Simeon's a better passer for Northwestern, which is really where Ohio State's defense is struggling right now. I'm not worried at all about the rush defense. Ohio State, I think, proved against Wisconsin that they're a rush defense that can hang with anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you want to practice against a two-quarterback system, all right, throw in Braxton and Kenny Guyton, and there's your two QB system, which is better than Coulter and Simeon.
Well, that happened by accident.
Right, that's true. But I'm saying if they want to practice against it, just throw Braxton and Simeon in there, and it's pretty much the same thing. Along for the rushing defense, I agree. I don't think they have a problem with it, allowing only 106 yards to Wisconsin, which is by far, in a way, the second best rushing attack in the Big Ten, second to Ohio State. I really don't think they have anything to worry about on the offensive side. I mean, King Coulter is very gritty, and then Vendrick Mark is also returning for Northwestern. But other than that, I think the Buckeyes just need to stay disciplined.
And let's go ahead and talk about Ohio State's last appearance they played in Evanston under the lights. This was all the way back in 2004. They were 7th at the time in the country. They lose that game in overtime, 33-27. They played a big-time ranked opponent before then come in, and they were trapped. It's a trap game. I'm not really comparing this team to the 2004 team, but there was that same emphasis of the trap game going to Northwestern at night. The trap has been mentioned a lot, not just by us or any of the media here in Ohio State. It's been talked about nationally too. Is that something to consider, that Ohio State they're kind of in that trap situation going into Northwestern?
I don't think so. I think it's a whole different situation. If you look at Northwestern, they're 4-0. They're ranked 16th in the country. It's a game day game. I don't think it's any sort of a trap game here. I mean, Ohio State knows what they're playing for, and Northwestern knows what they're playing for. So to say it's a trap game would have to see that Ohio State is overlooking them to somebody else. But going into a bye week next week, I think Ohio State doesn't really have anything to overlook Northwestern to. So I don't think it's a trap game at all. I think it's going to be a great game on Saturday.
Yeah, you pretty much said exactly what I was going to say. Game day's there. How can you overlook that? I mean, it's a big game, two ranked opponents under the lights. I don't think Ohio State's overlooking it for anything, especially not their bye week. So I don't think it's going to be a trap game. That being said, I think Northwestern's going to compete.
Yeah.
But I don't think Ohio State is going to play down to any sort of level. Ohio State is going to be playing their best ball.
I mean,
this
two
weekend.
straight top 25 opponents back-to-back weeks, and now they play this one on the road.
It
You
will
don't
be-
put that into consideration?
Well, it is a difficult game. I guess you can look at it as a trap game from that side, but I don't look at it as like a mentally trap game.
It's
which
not
is
like-
usually when people really get in trouble with trap games.
It's not like the Wildcats are actually the Wildcats that they've been in the past. They're actually a really good team this year. So I guess I can agree with you in that. But Brandon, two top 25 opponents back-to-back weeks, that doesn't really affect Ohio State at all? They're prepared for this game Saturday?
I don't think it does. I think right now rankings are just numbers, and I think Northwestern is a really good team. I think Wisconsin's a really good team. And then later on in the schedule, I mean, you have Iowa, Purdue. Each week is a different team. So, to put a 16 and an 18 ranking or whatever Wisconsin was right by their name, that's only really a number. You have to prepare for the team what their ranking is, whether they're 119 or 16. So you have to prepare the same way. So I don't think it's a trap game. I mean, you have to prepare for the game anyway. So it's going to be a tough game, like Mark said, but they're going to prepare the same way. I mean, Urban Meyer prepares every week, whether it's Florida A&M or Michigan. It's going to be the same preparation every single week.
And Urban Meyer would know preparing for top 25 teams in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
I think we don't have to mention anything else about his last gig. Well, coming up next, we'll take a look at the polls this week and talk about predictions, including the Wildcats and Buckeyes, after the break. Taking a look at the AP and coaches polls, Ohio State remains the same this week at number 4 in the AP and 3 in the coaches. Notable Big Ten teams ranked this week are Northwestern at 16 and 15, Michigan dropping again to 19th and 17th after their bye, and Nebraska sneaks in the rankings, coming in at 25th, only in the coaches poll. So let's start with the discussion. Really not much to talk about this week with Ohio State and the Big Ten coming in the polls. Aside from Michigan continuing to drop despite having the bye, will they turn it around this weekend? They play Minnesota. They were a good team, but the Iowa game kind of proved that Minnesota is still Minnesota. So, Mark, I'll start with you. What do you think about Michigan?
I think Michigan does turn it around against Minnesota. Minnesota isn't that tough of an opponent as we saw, like you said, last week against Iowa. And I think Michigan is hearing the voices. So it's their turn for Brady Hoke to lead this team and let them hear those voices or shut them out and just shut them up. And that's what Michigan, I think that's what they do this week.
You're going to say something.
I'm going to say something. Well, when you're playing for the Little Brown Jug, that's one thing, all right? I mean, that's one of the biggest rivalries in college football and one of the best trophies.
In college football.
I was
okay.
kidding.
I was going to say Big Ten maybe, but it was a little outlandish.
I
what
think
you said.
Michigan has to play well. I mean, it's against Minnesota. Minnesota with Rashid Hageman leading the defense was really, really good the first 3 weeks, and then got almost shocked by Iowa. I know you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan, but it was almost a shock win because Minnesota was coming in. They were rolling every game. They looked really well. But yeah, I think Michigan. I think they have to play well this weekend or they get beat. I think Minnesota is a very solid team. So if they play how they did against Akron or UConn, it might be a loss for the Wolverines.
Yeah, and they almost lost to a UConn team that just fired their coach.
Right.
So Minnesota is probably better than both those teams combined.
Yeah, I would have to agree
So
with that.
it might be tough for them. They're undefeated right now, but they're ranked 19th. That just kind of tells you what Michigan's been like this year. Let's talk about the second-ranked team in this poll, Oregon. They've occupied that second ranking for quite some time this season. The week after Ohio State's 40-20 win against Buffalo. Did their thrashing against Cal really hurt the Buckeyes in the polls this week? Because I believe Oregon had put like 50 or something points on the board by halftime against Cal, and this was a team where Cal was putting points on the Ohio State defense. So does that hurt Ohio State's nod to actually kind of climb in the polls?
Well, I think there's two things you got to look at here. I think the Cal game was the first indication of the OSU's sketchy secondary against the pass.
Yeah.
And also, but you have to take into account that Oregon is going to score points. Their points don't really matter. When they score points, I mean, that's just what their offense does. Ohio State does run a semi-spread attack that's a little modified to work in the Big Ten, so they do score points too, but I mean, they're not made to score 70 points a game, and that's just what Oregon does. So I'm not worried about the points that Oregon scores. I don't think it hurts Ohio State in the polls. That being said, I don't really think it helps And I think Ohio State, they really just need to hope for just some bad performances by Oregon, or maybe just a loss in there to move up in the polls. Because right now it doesn't look like Oregon, especially if they beat Stanford, will
I don't
go
think
back.
they're not moving at all.
Yeah.
If they beat Stanford or if they win the Pac-12 championship, they're locked, and Ohio State would be looking from the outside in. But Brandon, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Oregon, based on sample size, looks like the best team in the country. I mean, even including Alabama. The only reason Alabama's number one is because they're coming off back-to-back national championships. But if you look at their play this year, I mean, Alabama looks like they can be beat, unlike last year where everybody was saying they're by far and away the best team in the country. Looking at it this year, I think Oregon is by far and away the best team in the country. I mean, their defense is really, really good. Their offense is Oregon's offense.
No Chip Kelly.
Exactly, and it's impressive what they're doing, really. But the only way that I can see Oregon, falling in the polls is definitely a loss. But even moving in the polls is they have to jump Alabama somehow, and I know strength of schedule comes in with that.
Hey, Alabama did beat a decent Texas A&M squad. I mean, A&M's still 10th in the country.
Right, I agree with that, but Oregon, if you just look at them, I mean, their defense is really what's been shocking, because you're used to them putting up 50, 60 points a game, but you're not used to them holding opponents to under 10 points. I mean, that's really impressive. So Oregon's looking good, and I think that, I don't think it's going to hurt Ohio State in the polls come December or whenever that happens, but it's not going to help them at all.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our prediction segment of the show. Let's start with the game we were just talking about, the Little Brown Jug, and according to Brandon, it might be the best rivalry in all college football. All right, Minnesota at Michigan. Wolverines are a 19.5-point favorite in Ann Arbor. What score do you guys have? Who are you favorite?
I think Michigan takes care of business. I don't think they make the points, though. I think maybe they win by 14 at home, and the Wolverines get a little bit back on track, but still not very impressed by them.
I think the Wolverines win, but I think they win by about a touchdown. I'm not taking the points either. I think it's a close one. I think it's a very, very close game.
I think anyone would be foolish to actually, take those points,
Yeah.
the 19.5. How Michigan's been playing this year, I don't even think they win it by 7. Especially with a team like Minnesota. Let's go ahead and move to Michigan State at Iowa. Michigan State's offense definitely struggling. We don't have to talk about who their coordinator is, who's running that whole show, but still a 1.5-point underdog to the Hawkeyes. Who do you have?
I think I like Iowa. I think after the Minnesota game, Iowa finally gets Kinnick Stadium back to full capacity, and Iowa's had Michigan State's numbers in the past years, ever since about 2009 with the last-second win. Michigan State just kind of follies against Iowa, and that's what I think helps Iowa win this game as well.
Iowa, who's been rolling, who thrashed Minnesota, I can't go against Michigan State in this one. I think Kirk Ferentz is on the hot seat. If he loses,
he's not on the hot seat. He's like a $24 million buyout.
They can't afford to fire him. They can't pay him that money.
So I don't know. I think that Michigan State wins this one in like a 13-10 game. I mean, Michigan State's defense is really, really good, and that's something Iowa hasn't faced all year. But, once again, Iowa's defense is good, and Michigan State can't put the ball in the end zone. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see, like a 12-9 or 14-10 game or something where that includes about 6 field goals total.
All right, moving on to Illinois at Nebraska. Huskers favored by 9.5. Who do you have?
Brandon?
Oh, man. But with Bo Pelini acting the way he has lately, and then Nathan Scheelhaase throwing 5 touchdowns in the opening half, I think I'm going to go with the upset here. I think I'm going to take the Illini because Nebraska is in shambles right now, and they have no idea what's going on. So I think I'm going to go with Illinois.
Yeah, Nebraska's black shirt defense looks more like a white tank top defense right now. And I think Illinois has actually been probably one of the most impressive stories so far of the young Big Ten season.
Won one game a year before.
Yeah, so I think they've done a lot better this year. And Nebraska, that UCLA game just completely has made me lose confidence in what the Cornhuskers can do.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Illinois as well. Tim Beckman obviously turning that program around, so maybe they do win it. I'm not taking the 9.5, that Nebraska, but I think they win it by about 3 points. Speaking of Maryland, 25 ranked Maryland at 8th ranked Florida State, future Big Ten member. Do they get the upset in Tallahassee, or is Florida State, are they too strong for a Maryland
First
team
of
like
all,
that.
Florida State always pulls a Florida State some point in the year where they lose to a team where they're absolutely not supposed to. And then Maryland's quietly undefeated. I mean, they're 4-0. They're ranked in the top 25 for the first time in a couple of years. Famous Jameis Winston, we've already coined him, 3 or 4 games into his college career, and he's already a superstar.
Yep.
I think the Terrapins win. I think they really do. I think Florida State gets complacent, and I think Maryland beats the Seminoles.
I don't think they get complacent I think the reason is famous Jameis Winston. I think he's having a ball. He's loving it being the star quarterback of Florida State. He's only a freshman. I don't think he loses sight of what he wants to do, and I think Florida State keeps on rolling.
Hey, if Maryland was in this league this year, them being ranked 25th would help them greatly because they'd be in the same division. But I think Florida State's just going to roll over Maryland too. I mean, if you're a Big Ten fan, that's unfortunate, but I mean that's just what's going to happen. 15th ranked Washington at number 5 Stanford. A Stanford loss would definitely help Ohio State in the polls. I guess I'll start with you, Mark. Who do you have?
I mean, I have to go Stanford. I haven't really seen Washington play that much this year.
They beat Illinois.
They did beat Illinois, but Illinois
At
turned it on
at
after
Soldier
that.
Field.
At Soldier Field,
They turned it on after that.
Okay,
It was after the fact.
It was after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just have to go with Stanford. I think Stanford is, they really have to just focus on getting to the Oregon game, and they just got to focus on each game before that, and then they really need to lock in. But right now, I think they can get through their schedule, and Stanford wins.
I agree. I think Stanford is one of the best teams in college football. I picked them to win the Pac-12 this year. I picked them as a lock in the Rose Bowl to beat Oregon as well. So if you look at Stanford, they're just probably the best all-around team in America. I mean, their defense is good, offense is good, special teams is good. And really nothing stands out, but nothing dips down that level. So
those high SAT scores.
Yeah, exactly. They're just good all around. So I'm going to pick Stanford. And Washington has been on the come up, but I can't do it. I think Stanford rolls.
I think Washington gives them a good run, and they probably will lead that game at some point, but I think Stanford pulls it out by at least 7 points. And if you're an Ohio State fan, you really need to root for Washington in this one. That's pretty much all I got to say. So our game of the week, or our game in general, because that's who we cover, Ohio State at Northwestern. Buckeyes are a 7-point favorite Saturday in Evanston. Do they win the game, and do they cover the spread?
I think the Buckeyes cover the spread. I think they win the game. The thing that's worrying about Northwestern is they have a lot of interceptions this year. I think their defense has 10, which is 3rd in the nation right now. So, I mean, that's a little worrying. But, I mean, Braxton Miller doesn't throw the ball 40 times a game. So that's something that you can look for. And I just think Ohio State has a good rushing attack, a good passing attack, and their defense can shut down the run game of Northwestern. And then you just have to worry about that short dink and dunk passing game. But I think Ohio State wins and they cover the spread. Ohio State probably by 14.
So what's your final score? What do you see?
I think Ohio State gets in the 30s again, and I wouldn't be surprised 38-24.
38-24. Okay, Brandon.
I'm going with the Buckeyes as well. Northwestern is a good team, and probably one of the best in the Big Ten. Dark horse favorites to win the other division is Ohio State. But with that being said, I mean the Buckeyes are superior pretty much in every aspect. You look at their cornerbacks, they're going to be throwing those short NCAA routes pretty much all game. And if Ohio State gets wind of that, I mean, they're really not going to have any downfield opportunities. And plus, Braxton Miller on the offense, I think, is just way too strong for Northwestern's defense right now, and that offensive line especially. So I'm going Buckeyes big. I think the atmosphere really helps Northwestern out. Ryan Field, but it's probably going to be 40% Buckeyes there.
They got a big alumni base out there in Chicago.
But you got to remember, it's only a 30,000 seater, so
yeah,
the level of noise is going to be much lower than this past week against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I agree. So I think Buckeyes like 42-10.
Wow, you're going that big.
Yeah, I think something. I think it's going to be an okay game for the first quarter, but after that,
so you're calling statement win here.
Yeah, statement win for the Buckeyes.
That would be huge for them. I really wish I could agree with you, but I think it's just going to be one of your classic Big Ten games, those low-scoring defensive games. I'm going to pick Ohio State to win. I'm not taking them to cover. I'm taking it 21-17. Just from what we've been seeing from them so far. The secondary still struggling. No Christian Bryant. So you're having a new guy in there. Pitt Brown helps them a lot at free safety. But if you're getting some new guys in there, it's going to be it's going to be tricky. And this is the first time we see them on like a true road environment game. Because let's face it, out there in Berkeley, it was essentially a home game.
Right.
It was essentially a home game. So I'm going to pick 21-17 Ohio State edges Northwestern in that score. So, Mark, Brandon, thank you for joining us again this week. I'll probably see Brandon. You'll probably be on the show next week.
I will be here.
Right, with
I will
Jimmy
be here next
Bloomfield.
week. Yep.
They will have the game covered on Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio. I believe your pregame show starts at 6:30, correct? Or no, 5:30 because it's a 7 p.m. Central kickoff out there in Chicago.
Yep.
And Buckeye TV, obviously, we have you covered with the postgame report that will be out after the game. That's going to do it for us this week. Make sure you tune in to past episodes on Channel 19 or on thelantern.com/Buckeye TV. We'll see you next week. Have a great night.